Hey guys, it's Kevin again, and this is going to be my review for Turn, Season 1, Episode 5, Epiphany. And before I start the review, I do want to say that the reason I didn't have my reviews for Turn and Mad Men up yesterday was because I really was not feeling well yesterday. I went to school yesterday, and I felt fine. Then I came home, and I was not feeling well, so I'm not in school today because I had like a 101 fever yesterday, so I don't know what was going on. I'm feeling better today, though. I had to stay home, so that's why these reviews are up earlier. But because of that, I didn't get to watch them, but I just got to watch it, and holy shit, this episode of Turn was amazing. It really, really was. I never have been more impressed from this show than I have with this episode, because this episode literally was definitely the best episode of the season, definitely, but that appearance at the end of the episode, the character that's introduced, is just huge. Of who's introduced at the end of this episode. I mean, that's definitely one of the biggest parts of the whole episode, and because of that happening, this was a fantastic episode. Not only because of that, but also because of when it takes place. Because this episode takes place during December 24th till January 2nd. So, you know, it definitely was a huge, huge episode. I knew it was going to be best episode of the season because of it taking place that time, so let's just get to it. So, as I said, it's December 24th, and there's a crowd of slaves singing about freedom. They're thinking they're going to have freedom and everything. They're dancing and singing, and Richard is drafting a letter. He brings it to the Redcoat commander. It's an attender, and he tells Hewlett Happy Christmas. Hewlett sends a letter off and then sits at the pianoforte to play Rule Britannia, and Abe listens and stares at the headstone of and the sad thing is that it's the gravestone of Thomas, you know, his brother Thomas, so it's kind of sad there, because, you know, it didn't work. The Redcoats are beating a colonial effigy and fencing for a sport, and, then what happens is, you know, I really like that beginning scene, and Cierco reads the attender and tells the slaves that they're free and everything. They think they're all free, but they're really not. You know, they think they are. And Abe visits Richard, and you can see there's a lot of tension between Abe and Richard this whole episode, because Abe doesn't really know if he wants to speak to Richard, because, as we know, Richard removed that gravestone of Thomas, which Thomas was Abe's brother, and he meant so much to Abe, and Richard just removed it from him, so Abe is still pissed at him for that. You know, he really is pissed, and he's probably going to be pissed at him for the rest of the season because of that. I don't think there's going to be a lot of, amends between them, probably till the end of the season, because there is 10 episodes, and we're down to the crucial 5th episode, so, yeah. Abe tells Richard that he wants to go to New York to try and sell additional goods to Howe's army, and he asks for Colonel Cook's letter that will allow him to pass through British checkpoints. Richard refuses to give it to him and instead encourages Abe to spend Christmas with his family. So, afterwards, Abe sneaks into Hewlett's room, copies a letter from Hewlett's desk, and at the church, it gets kind of sad here because this episode has to do with slavery, which I really liked. I liked that this episode touched upon slavery. You know, I was very happy with that. And, oh, by the way, I forgot to say, the reason that this episode was so good was because it takes place from December 24th to January 2nd. If you did not know what was going on that time period, that was the time when we, the Americans, crossed the Delaware River, and then the Battle of Trenton began. That is what this episode has to deal with, and that's why I loved it so much. But Anna appeals the attender to Hewlett, who is arguing that it's cruel to free slave on short notice because they don't know how to fend for themselves. And I think that's good that she said that, because really, the slaves are not educated. They're not exactly the smartest. They're not, you know, they're used to being yelled at. I can see where Anna is coming from with that. I can definitely see where she's coming from. But Hewlett tells her he's shipping the male slaves off to war, and he's made arrangements for Abigail. So, Jordan, a slave, is flirting with Abigail at Straw Manor. She rebuffs him. He says he knows she can read, but agrees to keep her secret safe. So, I mean, that's a pretty big thing, because if you know, I'm sure you guys know this, many slaves were very illiterate. They didn't speak well, they couldn't read, and Abigail is very, very intelligent, as is her son Cierco, who also can read, and the thing is, if they find out that they're intelligent, they could be killed for that, because slaves are not supposed to be intelligent, they're not supposed to be smart, and it's not going to be good for them in the long run. So obviously, she wants to keep that secret safe. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there, definitely. I really like that part. So, Robert Rogers visits John Andre at New York City Hall, asking to speak with the general that Andre reportedly captured, and Andre dodges his request. So at the Continental Camp, and I love the stuff with Ben and Caleb in this episode, Ben is told to gear up for a secret mission. He and Caleb sail into the Delaware River, and to their surprise, they find themselves amid an entire fleet. There are a lot of other people going into the Delaware River. So Anna tells Abigail, very sad, it's kind of sad here, because Anna's telling Abigail basically that she has no choice. Hewlett is sending her to New York, you have no choice, and you're working for a British officer. And Abigail begs Anna to help her bring Cierco, but Anna says her pleas with Hewlett failed, and unfortunately, she just has no other choice. And Anna feels really bad here. And you know what? I liked that they actually showed someone who knows why slavery is important, but it's not like they showed, you know, the slaves getting beaten or anything. They didn't show this. They showed the slaves basically, you know, we saw Anna try to kind of negotiate with Hewlett, but obviously it's not going to work because Hewlett is very anti-slave. You know, is very non-slavery. He doesn't want that to happen yet. And, you know, it's still 1700, so they had to touch upon that. So, Abe tells Anna that the British are recalling General Cornwallis to London. He asks her to hang a black petticoat so that he can pass the intelligence on to Caleb. Discouraged by the attender, Anna tells him that the fight is over, and he goes inside. And she goes inside. So then, Ben and Caleb, very, very big here. Ben and Caleb's boat approaches shore. The boat tips over, it capsizes on them, and the swivel gun mounted on the side nearly falls off. Ben jumps overboard to save it, and is immediately stunned by the icy water. So it's not good for him here, obviously. And it takes him till January 2nd to wake up. And you know what? That's why I love this episode so much, because we go from December 24th to January 2nd like that. And it was actually really well done, I thought. And you know, when he wakes up, Caleb tells him that the men have marched on to Trenton, and the Battle of Trenton has basically begun. So Roger sneaks into City Hall, crashes a dare between Philmy and General Lee. Lee recognizes Rogers, introduced him to Miss Endicott, I think her name was, as the hero of the 7-Year War. So on the Woodhull farm, Mary prepares to go to Whitehall, where Richard is celebrating the Feast of the Epiphany. She says Thomas has the crop, and would benefit from the warmth and servants at Whitehall. Still angry with Richard over the headstones, Abe does not join her because he's just so pissed at Richard, and he just does not want anything to do with Richard at this point. He doesn't want him to be near him, he wants nothing to do with him. Hewlett informs the male slaves of Straw Manor that they will join the war effort in New York, after which they'll receive papers granting their freedom. So I think that was pretty good. And then we get a very sad scene where Abigail is basically forced to say goodbye to Cierco, urges him to keep his reading skills a secret. She then tells Anna she knows about the petticoat signal and the rebel scams with Abe and Caleb. She offers to spy on her future employee, Major John Andre, if Anna protects Cierco while she's away, and Anna agrees. So Anna's going to protect Cierco, but the thing is, Cierco can read, so Anna finds out about this. It's going to be interesting to see what she does. I don't think she's going to kill them, obviously, but it's going to be interesting to see what, you know, to see what Anna does when she finds out that Cierco can read. It's going to be very interesting there, and I'm interested in seeing what's going to happen there. So, in Trenton, Ben and Caleb run into Continental militia. They learn that the army successfully ambushed the Heisen soldiers, and Ben yelps, he screams Abraham Woodhull, realizing that Washington heeded Abe's report. A militiaman tells him that Washington led most of the soldiers onward to Princeton, but left a small group behind to act as decoys. So the group sets several fires along the bank of the creek, then runs about and makes a lot of noise to give the impression that a much larger force is encamping for the night. So across the creek, we see John Andre, who recommends to Cornwallis that they attack the rebels now. Cornwallis, believing Washington's entire forces on the opposite bank, decides against a night attack. So back at City Hall, Lee criticizes Washington for getting so many of his men killed. At least he isn't a traitor like you, Rogers says, confronting Lee for betraying the Connecticut Dragons. He then asks for the name of the dragon who escaped, and the name is Benjamin Talmadge. And then here we get a really great montage. I love the song they were playing during this. I really did like the song. I don't know the name of the song, but I thought it worked really well with this scene. I really like the song. I hope they put it on iTunes. I know they put the other songs from Turn on iTunes, so I expect them to put this one on iTunes as well. Cornwallis raids the opposite bank only to find it abandoned, and the very sad scene, Anna is comforting Cierco as he cries, because, you know, his mother is leaving him to go to New York, so it's going to be interesting there. And then, very interesting, Abigail actually meets up with Jordan. Jordan also went to New York, who passes in a fancy carriage. They exchange looks, so possibly a relationship, I think. I don't really know, but I think there might be a relationship there, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. So Abe is welcomed by his family at Whitehall, where they dine with Hewlett and other redcoats. And then at Continental headquarters in Morristown, New Jersey, soldiers are chanting, Trenton, Princeton, Jersey is ours again. And then we see someone come by, they're all cheering, and it's George Washington. Yes, George Washington finally, after all these episodes, was introduced this episode. And I thought it was great. And the best part is, you know, he wants to find Abe, and he says, now who is Abraham Woodhull? And so he now wants to work with Abe, and him and Abe are going to probably work together. They're going to end up doing something together. I don't really know what they're going to end up doing. We're going to have to see what happens there. But I loved this episode. This is by far the best episode of the season because of not just Abraham Woodhull, but also the slavery stuff I thought was very well done. The fact that we got to see a little bit more of the Redcoats' perspective in this episode I thought was well done. The Ben and Caleb plot was extremely well done. I loved that personally. I thought that was great. I loved the Abe you know, that stuff was fantastic in my opinion. Really did love that. And, I did forget one thing. There was a scene with Anna and Abe, and he's drunk and everything, and they end up kissing, so I don't know where that's gonna go, personally. I did forget to talk about that one thing, but this episode still was amazing. There are a couple things I want to know. What does Washington want with Abe? What does he want to do with Abe? Obviously, he wants to work with Abe somehow. We don't really know what he wants to do exactly, but I'm interested in seeing that. What's going to happen with Cierco and Anna? Eventually, Anna's going to find out that Cierco can read because he's smarter than all the other ones. He's not illiterate. He speaks very well, so I'm thinking she's going to find out he can read. Jordan and Abigail, do you think there's going to be a relationship there? Also, Anna and Abe kissing. Do you think Abe is going to remember that? Do you think what's going to happen there? There's definitely going to be some tension between them. Will Richard and Abe eventually make amends? I think they will. It doesn't seem like there's any sort of amends yet. I think there will be eventually. Definitely, we're getting really close to that finale. We have 6 episodes left because they just announced there were 10 episodes of the show, so there are only 6 episodes left of this show, so I'm looking forward to them. You know, this last episode was great, and I feel from here it can only get better. So that's it for my review. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in my next video, which will be for Mad Men. So I will see you guys for that review. Okay, bye.